We begin our report with the cleanup and recovery efforts in the wake of Helene's 500-mile path of destruction. Tropical storm made landfall last week in Florida's Big Bend area as a Category 4 hurricane. That's the strongest system to ever hit the region. More than 100 people have died across 6 states. More than 600 people are unaccounted for. According to Power Outage US, at least 2 million Americans from Florida to Ohio are without power or forms of communication. Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, which has been severely affected by Helene, says the death toll there is expected to rise as crews clear isolated communities that have been trapped by roads, bridges, and widespread flooding. Roads and bridges, of course, that are closed. President Biden said he'll visit North Carolina Wednesday while discussing the federal response to Helene at the White House. He promised his administration would provide long-term assistance for those affected.
The administration is going to be there, and we just talked about this, until we finish the job. It's going to take a hell of a long time and a serious amount of assets. With federal support, the state has reopened 220 roads, which are going to help responders reach people and get the support they need quickly. Right now, thousands of federal personnel are deployed in your communities, supporting search and rescue, debris removal, power restoration, and getting cell networks back online.
For more, CBS News correspondent Skyler Henry is in North Carolina on the ground. Skyler, what do we know about why the death toll is so high and how it happened to run up those numbers?
Yeah. Well, John, if you pay attention to how officials have responded to this, they have said that many of those, at least who are unaccounted for, if it hasn't been a communication issue because of the trouble that we've been experiencing here in and around Asheville, then they say that it is those who didn't want to leave those mandatory evacuation zones. We are still waiting to see exactly where and how all of this happened and who knew what and when as it relates to any sort of alarms that were sounded, if you will, prior to some of those flash flooding. But remember, for days prior to this, forecasters predicted that this region would be a flash flood zone consistently over the course of about a 48-hour span. And so that is what officials were trying to stress to as many people as possible. We've been in several small communities like this one, Swannanoa, just outside of Asheville. Many of those say that they took heed to those warnings, but some who typically say that they've been through a hurricane, they've been through a flood in the past and felt as if they would do okay. Unfortunately, those numbers, though, look as if some made a mistake.
And why was Asheville so badly hit? Is there something, what combination of factors created the mayhem that led to those deaths?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's a combination of things, especially if you look at the ingredients that made up the storm, if you will, of Helene. The uniqueness of its strength that far in. Remember, this was a storm that hit the Big Bend down in Florida and really sort of made its way up through the south before going out west. This is a town that is not prepared for a hurricane, traditionally speaking. They also had a series of days where it was already raining, so much so that officials say that they were concerned about the possibility of flooding before Helene even hit. And so when you take that into account, and the fact that we are in the mountains, and the fact that a lot of these people live not only in those low-lying areas surrounding floodwaters, but in the mountains as well, officials say that there could be the possibility for, yes, floods, but also mudslides and landslides. And so that, mixed with the combination of things that we are normally accustomed to with severe weather, fallen trees, knocked down power lines, I think that was the recipe for the disaster, if you will, as Asheville and other communities around this region try to dig themselves out.
Skyler Henry in North Carolina. Thank you so much, Skyler.